Busy day in Blacksburg, Virginia. Busy days, weeks, months ahead as Virginia Tech officially unveiled James Franklin as a new Virginia Tech head football coach. We'll jump into the full day's analysis and reactions straight from that, from the airport to the ceremony at Castle to obviously the basketball game, all in between. Talk about some recruiting nuggets and dive into some Q&As from the fans in the live chat, talking about everything surrounding this hire. On tonight's episode of Kolby's Corner, coming to you live from Blacksburg, Virginia on Wednesday, November 19th at around 9:30 after Virginia Tech wins another basketball game against Bryant. Appreciate all the support on the show. Met a ton of people today supporting the show. But yeah, just what a week. Maybe finally get some rest here in the upcoming days. But yeah, appreciate all the support. Cannot thank everyone enough who's gotten the show to this point. Obviously, a lot of the show is built on the momentum of this coaching search, and already seeing chats come in now. Is it really happening? Is it done? It's sort of crazy to think this full circle moment. So we'll talk some of the backstory of that as we progress tonight on Kolby's Corner. But thank you everyone again. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the show with a friend. This is not just a coaching search live episode show. We will continue coverage on the Virginia Tech football team as they ramp up this high school recruiting season and into the transfer portal. This is going to be the best place to be, along with vtscoop.com. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video. The support means everything. So really appreciate it. But diving into things, first off, starting off the day at the airport, where arguably people are saying this coaching search really started going last Friday at the airport. It had to be at the airport. And, you know, obviously James Franklin touchdown at the Montgomery Regional Airport, I believe around 8 o'clock a.m. And good thing I set a backup alarm, because Evan G. Watkins would have had my head if I missed that first alarm like I almost did. But we got over there in time, had a pretty good spectacle. Probably a couple hundred people were there to welcome James Franklin in off the jet. And that was quite a scene. The band, cheerleaders, obviously Bud there, a lot of the committee members there to greet him off the plane. And pretty instantly was welcomed to Blacksburg, Virginia. From there, snapped a couple photos and then went over to the press conference, which I think there you had a pretty solid turnout in Castle as well. And first off, what a production by just Virginia Tech to, I mean, the infrastructure that went into that whole production for the press conference, just so many working parts, and they honestly kind of nailed it. And let alone James Franklin then goes on and kind of wins the press conference. And arguably, is that valuable? Is that not valuable? But at the end of the day, that's something that you definitely want to have in the bucket. And he went up there and kind of laid it out there. I mean, prior to him, you heard from Rector John Rakovich on parts of the search, Athletic Director Whit Babcock on what this means, and President Tim Sands. But it really came down to when James Franklin went up there and spoke pretty directly about the message and the direction of where he wants to take Virginia Tech, how firm he is in his stance, his beliefs, his recruiting tendencies, what he wants to do, how he wants to build it, how he's going to take the lessons that he's learned and apply them here. I mean, spoke with a great conviction, I think, in both his opening statement and even in the questions. Obviously got a little choked up when talking about Brent Pry. I think Brent Pry has a really, really big part in this. I touched on it in the Monday episode from the Chick-fil-A in South Carolina when I was driving back when the news broke, but Brent Pry played a really big part in that. And you saw how much that meant to James Franklin today. I mean, not to be remiss, I think Bud Foster played a really, really big part in this, obviously on the search committee, their relationship getting this off the ground. Board members and committee members, Ryan McCarthy, Jay Pearson, they were locked in on this to the end. I mean, you saw them and talked to them. But yeah, I thought just a strong showing from the press conference. Had a lot of the players there, spoke pretty directly to them on the direction of the program and how he wants to take it. So some details that are just off the top of the head. The contract is 5 years. No figures yet on that, but the contract is for 5 years. And then in talking to both Ryan McCarthy and Jay Pearson, different board members, obviously a lot was made of that trip last Friday up to go see James Franklin in Happy Valley. Jay Pearson and Bud Foster both hopped on a plane to go up there, as it felt like Ryan was dealing with the lawyers and things were just kind of getting stuck in the mud. And they kind of just looked at each other and was like, okay, let's go close this thing in person, face to face. And this is the way to do it. And they went up there. Sounds like they met, had a solid dinner. And then I think, you know, instead of just leaving like, okay, go to the airport now, James drove them to the airport just to spend more time with Bud Foster. So, I mean, that was just a little nugget in talking to some of these people. There were a lot of moving parts, but they felt really confident going into last weekend, which mirrored up with a lot of the reporting on vtscoop.com. So the support means a ton. we tried to give you the best coverage. A lot of people were tuned in. A lot of people there were tuned into the coverage. So appreciate everyone bearing with us through that. But yes, now officially the deal is done, obviously. So there was that context, and it's just absolutely a grand slam. On Mondays, just like program defining, program changing. It's still truly not hyperbolic to say that when you check pretty much all the boxes you're looking for. Yes, everyone's going to have imperfections. No job is going to be the exact right fit, but I mean, based on all the circumstances, as well as Virginia Tech could have done, and I think it's good of a landing spot for James Franklin, considering the situations. And you've seen he's already hit the ground recruiting ahead of this Miami weekend. So a lot more to come, but a great introduction with a ton of moving parts. So yeah, make sure to dump any questions in the live chat. We'll try to touch on those. I know there's going to be Terror Dome tomorrow on the website, vtscoop.com. 75% off right now. Terror Dome for a ton of behind the scenes stories. Just touch on like one random anecdote right there. There's going to be a ton of stuff on the website throughout the coming weeks, but you do not want to miss tomorrow around 8 p.m. Terror Dome. Cannot recommend that enough. But dump any questions in the live chat. We'll touch on some of those. At the basketball game, James Franklin came out, had a quick little statement. I thought it was funny, just ramping up the crowd on his conviction in the program. Also, obviously, been saying the "We Are" chant for close to 12 years. He didn't want to mess up the "Let's Go Hokies" chant, so I thought that was funny. Throughout the day, I think Virginia Tech and just really maximizing being early and ahead on the cycle. I mean, being on the Pat McAfee show, being on ESPN. I mean, really maximize the coverage. It was so expansive nationwide on this hire and all the surrounding with it. Did a great job in that regard. Obviously hopped on the phone with a bunch of Letterman, former players, hit early stages meeting with the team as he works through that, was talking to recruits. So really got boots on the ground and started hitting and going after it. Had a meeting with a lot of the big donors in person. Sounds like that might still be going on even right now. If you're in downtown Blacksburg, maybe go check out some of those establishments. But yeah, overall, I think as well as a day you could have hoped for if you were a Virginia Tech stakeholder in the James Franklin introduction and all that surrounded it. But now you've got a big, big, big road ahead of you, and there's going to be a lot of lines. I know right now, especially when you're on the site, there's a lot of this in recruiting. There's going to be you're going to take your licks. It's going to be switching and swapping and losing a guy, but at the same time, there's a lot of positive momentum, but there's still a lot of work ahead. And I think they're excited about some of the staff coming in, obviously, with Andy Frank, chief of staff, and some other names, building that out. Obviously, as we're starting to hear some coaching names, just dropped a VIP on potential coordinator names as we're starting to hear some intel come out on that. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to devolve here in the coming weeks before Thanksgiving. So make sure to jump over to vtscoop.com. Did a really great interview on this YouTube channel at Kolby Crawford with Brian Doan, national 24/7 sports reporter, about some recruiting questions overall with James Franklin, but also specific recruits. Might toss in across the crystal ball tomorrow morning for a certain player. So make sure to follow on the socials on X at Kolby_Crawford for a ton of recruiting info as it's coming out. But yeah, it's a really great interview with Brian Doan on the channel, about 20 minutes long, talking about James Franklin recruiting. Make sure to go check that out. Highly recommend watching that. But yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the video, dump some questions in the live chat. Going to hang out in here for a little bit and then decompress from the day. It's been a long day, but just come on here and break down some thoughts. Thank you so much to everyone who's rode with us through this. Had committee members watching, had donors watching, had coaches watching, but appreciate everyone bearing with us and showing us some grace. On November 19th, James Franklin was announced as Virginia Tech's head coach. But let's jump into some questions from Brucello La Plata. Question 1, is this really happening? Feels unreal. I think when you talk to different committee members after the press conference today, they wanted to make sure they had all their ducks in a row. They had backup options. They did their due diligence, but this was really target one. Since they really honed in, this was really target one, and they're one guy, and they really only had one option. So now Jimmy Sexton was in attendance today, and as a leverage play, your hands are kind of tied on that, and you want to get it done super fast. It sounds like his deadline was always around that Monday, November 17th date, and they got it done. But, I mean, there were twists and turns. I think Bud always felt really, really confident that it was going to get done, but there was a lot of uneasiness. But now it's done, and, I mean, you could tell just how enthusiastic everyone involved in the search was to get this across the finish line. You really can't overstate how big it is for Virginia Tech and the university as a whole. Question from TJB. Appreciate it, man. Is there a real chance that Tim Banks, as defensive coordinator, would he leave Tennessee? I mean, very early stages there. Obviously, they have a connection there with James Franklin prior to that. I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see. I think that would be a tough pull, just my perspective on that. But a name that's going to be floated just based on the connection. But, I mean, I think if you're a Virginia Tech shareholder, you would love that hire. Obviously, what he's been able to produce and accomplish at Tennessee and previously at Penn State. Appreciate the question. Question from 25 Andrew D25. Appreciate it. Brent Pry seemed to play a key role in hiring Franklin. I've heard rumblings of him possibly coming back. What role do you see him taking on Franklin's staff? Yeah, I mean, obviously, you touched on it there in the open, played a really big role. Sounds like Franklin might have even stayed over at his house when he was visiting a couple of times and looking for some of those houses, or at least hung out there. Obviously, vetted him and picked his brain, bounced his ideas off him to get a real opinion of what the job he would be stepping into. And I think realistically, you're hearing murmurs of him having a role on the staff. And I'm not sure. Is that going to be a defensive analyst? Obviously, probably a little overqualified to be just a defensive analyst. Is that going to be a defensive coordinator? I'm not sure. Franklin was kind of coy when asked about it. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. I would not be shocked at all, and maybe even lean like 51% plus that Brent Pry finds himself in a staff position next year with Virginia Tech. Got Dave the Barber. Shout out, VT Scoop Gang. Dave the Barber back. Appreciate the comment, man. Looks like Coach Smith may be leaving Penn State the way he talked in his press meeting. Yeah, that would be really interesting. Obviously, interim Coach Smith up there, his connection with James Franklin when asked about it, played that a little coy as well. And that would be a really massive pull for Virginia Tech, too. Someone who's had a very long track record of coaching, obviously with James Franklin, and someone who's done it at a really high level, produced a lot of really high-quality athletes. That would be a really big add to the staff early on if that were to happen. Now, they still have a couple games before they wrap up the season, but it sounds like Franklin wants to be rather swift in getting his staff put together so they can hit the ground running. Question from Tebow644. Appreciate the questions, everyone. Make sure to dump them in the live chat. We'll get to as many as we can before we hop off here. Does James Franklin come across to you like he's on a mission to prove the doubters wrong? He seems like a man on a mission to put a heck of a staff together and go get some ballers. I mean, when talking to him, when talking to different people around him, even when he's maybe trying to save face a little bit, yes, he definitely has a chip on his shoulder. He definitely feels a certain way about the way things went down, and he's, in layman's terms, looking to get his lick back. He really is very hyper-motivated, hyper-meticulous in all the details, wanted to make sure all the ducks in a row before he took this job, before they really got too far into things. But he's ready to hit the ground running and is very targeted in his approach and seems hyper-motivated. Not desperate, but definitely chip on the shoulder energy. You can definitely feel that and hear that from different people around the situation. Andrew, appreciate the question. This is pretty rudimentary, over under 5 commits after the weekend. I was having a conversation with someone actually just at the basketball game and like, oh, what would you set the line at? And honestly, the line kind of set there close to like 4.5. So I feel like that would be a solid baseline, but you don't really know. I mean, this is so rudimentary off the wall, but I wouldn't be shocked at that at all. I mean, I also wouldn't be shocked at 8. I wouldn't be shocked at 3. Is it going to be by Sunday? Is it going to be by the following Tuesday? Not sure. But I mean, there's going to be a positive, massive upwelling of hype on the recruitment trail. Got a lot of really big names considering still. When we talk about a Matt Sieg, potentially Tyrell Grant, who's committed to Syracuse coming up. There's some guys. It's going to be a really, really big weekend one way or another. Got all the Green Run guys coming up, different commits. So I would expect at least a couple commitments already almost locked in the boat. Like I said, might have a couple crystal balls coming tomorrow. But they're going to have a ton of guys, and they are very, very committed to this weekend. And then it sounds like they're going to try and pull some really highly touted guys next weekend, even when they're in UVA, have them come to Virginia Tech and just have Franklin host them here. So we'll see, but it's going to be a very busy time before the dead period and early signing day next week. Got Hokie95. What coaches do you think will be invited to stay on? I've seen a lot of different rumors about this and heard some stuff. The one I would really air to say right now, I think Fontel Mines is pretty firm in his position at wide receivers coach. or whatever role. But I think he will find himself a role on staff. Don't really want to extend beyond that, just outside of my sourcing base and knowledge, but I think that would be one that you would definitely expect to see. Got Texas Best 1253. Do you know any details about the call video conference with former players? Very loosely, just heard that he sounds like, leaned into what makes Virginia Tech, being physical, recruiting the state, and getting back to those winning ways. It's just sort of knowing what it's all about. Beyond that, no, I don't know any specifics, but that's sort of just some of the murmurs that I picked up on from at the basketball game. I think this is a good question. It's a little bit rudimentary. 25 Andrew, or I don't know what the word, but it's a little ambiguous, I guess, to say. Our Virginia Tech 2026 recruiting class is currently ranked number 124. Where do you see that ending up? Right now, there's only 8 guys in the class. You might lose a couple guys that are currently committed in this class. You're obviously going to gain quite a few. It's going to be really interesting. It's just like, what is that number? How many are you going to take? Are you going to take 8? Are you going to get 15 in the next couple of days? So obviously that number is an anomaly. If you could get anywhere to that 55 to 70 range, 40 to 60, somewhere in there, that would be amazing. But you really just have to get guys that you want into the door and try and salvage that so you don't have a whole lost class. Now, this is going to be an anomaly, and Franklin talked about in his press conference, you're going to lean a lot heavier in the transfer portal this year for obvious reasons. But you still got to build on the high school ranks, and he said that's what he wants to do. So they're still going to have to be really not precise, but make a big effort to land those guys that they're targeting. And it sounds like they've already done a really great job with a lot of top targets. Who was the second on the list? The second on the list sounds like it was Bob Chesney, who sounds like he may be going out to UCLA. Obviously, I haven't followed that too closely. Like I said, Jimmy Sexton was there working the phones. Obviously, has a lot different coaches still looking and moving the chess pieces around. So a lot to still play out in the coaching carousel. I think that's a big reason why the committee was so excited and took a big sigh of relief knowing that it was over. Kingdom Builder 88 asking about Terry Smith again, like Dave the Barber just asked up in the chat. I would not be surprised to see Smith follow Franklin. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked by it at all. Obviously did play at Coy, and that would be a really big get, I think, for James Franklin. If that's someone he wants to add to his staff, has obviously done it at a really high level for quite a while, and someone who's worked with James for a long time. So I wouldn't be shocked by that. I would look out for maybe a Poindexter. People have talked about that, but I don't know. There's still a lot of question marks there. Obviously, a lot of those back-end personnel guys have already come with James Franklin, Andy Frank, chief of staff, some of those other names in the recruiting department. But the staff, we will make sure to cover all that on vtscoop.com. Like I said, just dropped a VIP article, Coordinator Hotboard 1.0. Make sure to go check that out with a ton of names and intel about some potential coordinators coming up. Kingdom Builders is James Franklin going to be on the sidelines on Saturday? Obviously not coaching, but present for the game. Yes, he'll be present. I'm not sure if he's going to be on the sideline. I don't know how that's going to work. Obviously, he's going to host all of these recruits on their visits. I don't know how he's going to be there. The last thing he wants to do is be a distraction for the team right now. I think he made that a pretty clear emphasis, but at the same time, you have to be building for next season. And he's trying to set them up, obviously, in the best position. So it's going to be extremely busy on Saturday. I know I always hype up the website, but vtscoop.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. We will have all the analysis because it's going to be very busy. Definitely expecting quite a few commitments coming out of the weekend. So make sure to stay tuned in. It's going to be busy. Turn on those Twitter notifications. This question, the idea of the roster size, 105, that's standard across college football, if that's what you're asking, unless I took that the wrong way. Might end on one of these. Thanks for responding to Franklin. Hi, how are you, Kolby? Showed more class than most. Appreciate it. I know people were diving into the press conference and asking the questions. But yeah, that was cool. So appreciate all the support. Just a quick wrap-up show on a very, very hectic Wednesday, full day of coverage over on btscoop.com, on social media. Make sure to follow, subscribe, 75% off over at btscoop.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Kolby Crawford. Follow me on Twitter, on X, at Kolby_Crawford. It's going to be a very, very busy but exciting time here in Blacksburg, Virginia for Virginia Tech's football program. We'll try and have the best coverage, most up to date, as James Franklin starts building out his staff and his board for next year. But yeah, appreciate all the support. We'll be signing out here. Not sure when the next show is. Maybe Friday to break down recruiting lists. If not, we will see you Saturday after the game. The support has been insane. Subscribe to the channel. Share the show with a friend if you've enjoyed it. It's been one heck of a ride, but the ride's not ending. It's just starting. So make sure to stay tuned in. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week. We'll be dropping a ton of great content. Go check out the interview on the channel with Brian Doan. About 20 minutes. Touches on a lot of really, really good aspects of local recruiting, individual recruiting, but also large scale, what James Franklin operates. So appreciate it. Enjoy. Have a safe rest of your week. Take care of the people around you. Have a great rest of your night, and God bless.